Hey guys, welcome back to more crazy neighbor stories. In this video, my neighbor called the police on me when I sunbathe at my pool, claiming that I am breaking the law. And in our second story, I get amazing malicious compliance on my homeowner association after they tried to bully my daughter. Let's dive right into the video. The first one starts like this. So my name is George and I was recently tangled up in a horrid situation. Spoiler warnings for abuse and discrimination, the likes of which I've never seen before in the UK. So I am 54 years old and I live by myself in a house at the end of a quiet neighborhood in the sometimes sunny Kent. I moved to Kent in the early 90s during a crash on the property market, giving me the chance to move out of my tiny apartment on the council estate to somewhere I could really stretch my legs. The new house initially needed a lot of work, but as its key selling point was its own dug-in swimming pool, I made the decision without much hesitation. Over the years, I redesigned the back garden a few times, adding a wooden patio from the back door to the pool, planting beautiful rose bushes along the fence, and establishing rows of raised vegetable beds. I get on well enough with my neighbors, no saucy gossip or drama. While it was less interesting than an episode of EastEnders, I cannot say that I miss hating the people that lived around me. Well, that was until Debbie moved in next door. My old neighbors, having lived in the village for like half a century, went and downsized into a retirement home, leaving their house open to the vultures. I did not even realize that they had any interest on the house until I saw the moving van. And then there she was, pulling up behind the van. Out from her little red Mini stepped Debbie. She was tall, strawberry blonde, and dressed to impress. Being in such close proximity, I decided to go out and say hello, thinking it would be better done now than the likelihood of bumping into her later while taking out the bins. As I approached her, she suddenly got a phone call that diverted her attention, though she still had time to monitor the movers carrying expensive-looking furniture. I hung around a little bit to wait to say hello, but to no luck. One time she did mutter, "Sorry, I don't have any on me," vaguely in my direction, but after that made no attempt to acknowledge me. I retreated so that I would not be in the way, looking back to find the call had just as suddenly ended. While I thought it was odd at the time, I assumed it was just because she was nervous meeting new people. A few weeks later, Britain was hit by a heat wave, and while it's not uncommon for countries to be hot in the summer, Britain tended to have its fair share of mild weather or rain. Good weather was rare, and when it did come, it usually did not last long, so we knew we all had to make the most out of it. Well, I had my whole day planned out already, sunbathing, dip in the pool, followed by a barbecue in the evening. Just as my relaxing morning of roasting under the sun got started, a dark cloud moved over the sky to block my tan. Deciding to cut my sunbathing a bit short, I got changed and went for a few laps in the pool. Resurfacing from my last lap, I heard the sound of footsteps across the patio. Wiping my eyes, I saw uniformed constables walking up. "Sorry to bother you, sir. We heard that there was a disturbance in the area," one of the men said while the others scanned every detail on my garden. Focused or maybe even concerned, I stepped out of the pool as the constable handed me the nearby towel. "Disturbance?" I asked, trying to recall anything unusual this morning. The constable stopped to share a look before the other man stepped forward to join the conversation. "Are you the homeowner, sir?" I did not like the look in his eyes, as if accusing me of something. I nodded, but their gaze remained as if waiting for more. Feeling uncomfortable in the silence, I offered proof. "I got a water bill with my name on it. Would that help?" A few minutes later, they were suitably satisfied that I was who I said I was and left through the fence gate separating my back garden from my driveway. I was ready to put the whole incident behind me when I heard an argument erupt between the constables and an unknown woman. Because it still sounded close by, I went to investigate, finding the constables on my driveway with my new neighbor. Raised voices were quickly cut off when they realized they were being overheard. "Excuse me, this is a private conversation," the woman snapped at me. The words themselves were innocent enough, but there was enough venom in her tone that a turnip could tell she was being purposefully passive-aggressive. I guess she forgot whose driveway she was stood on. These stubborn narcissist types really rubbed me the wrong way, but I clenched my teeth and refrained from returning bile with bile. Stepping up to them, I instead ignored her and addressed one of the men. "Can I help with anything else, officer?" I knew that if I stayed polite and cooperative, it would de-escalate whatever the F was happening here. The constables shared the nervous glance that told me they were not sticking around by choice, their path blocked by the irate Karen who refused to budge. No, we were just leaving, the man said as they quickly moved around the woman towards their car. The woman darted forward and seized one by the arm. "Hold on, what about the disturbance I called about?" she said insistently, one hand outstretched, consciously or unconsciously, towards me. A moment of hushed words passed before the woman recoiled and released her grip. The constables continued to get into their car without a response. While it was difficult to hear from the distance, I swear I could have picked out "homeless migrant" and "he doesn't belong here" in her complaints. "To serve and protect, what a joke," the woman muttered to herself before storming off towards her own house. I thought the incident was finally over, but before she was fully gone, she turned to me one last time and said, "My nice village has no room for you homeless beggars. I see you around here again, and the parish council will move you along. Got it?" Then before I had time to consider a response, she slammed the door. It's been a month since that day, and my terrible neighbor has followed up on her threat and complained about me to the local parish council multiple times. I found out when I got a rather surprising visit from a council member who came to investigate the issue. I'm now on a first-name basis with that person and chat about our hobbies over tea and biscuits every time they are called out because of this same issue. When it became clear that the council would not kick me out, I hear she resorted to plan B instead, turning the village against me with lies and slander. This started off as generally witchy gossip overheard in the local shop and pub about how I was rude, nosy, dirty, odd. I ignored it as best as I could. I was not completely alienated, but it did seem to turn more heads than I was expecting or hoping it would. Relentless as a pit bull, she even took photos of my house and a few rooms through windows while I was not there. She proceeded to then staple these two to every telephone pole in a 5-mile radius with the caption, "Do you want this filthy place devaluing your house? If you're with me, then sign petition 5393 or call the parish council to act now." I had to call my solicitor if only to have someone here to stop me going over there and putting an end to this farce by myself. I would not have said that I had a short temper, but my neighbor was really beginning to test my limits. After some solid advice, I began to gather evidence that I could use to defend myself, of which I now had plenty. I managed to get CCTV footage from a nice neighbor of the day she called the police on me. I had a copy of the police report, character testimony from the council member that visited often, and friendships across the village spanning decades. Turning the tables, I filed a case of harassment and defamation against my neighbor, one I was gonna make sure would not be ignored. I was outside pretending to water the plants when the same constables returned. My neighbor did not miss this either, and I had pleasantly assumed that they were here to arrest me. While I couldn't hear their conversation across the street, the shock on her face told me all I needed to know about it. Following on from their visit, she was ordered to take down all the flyers, and the parish council stopped taking her requests seriously too. The rest of the village quickly caught wind of the news and were fully supportive of my right to take action against such a horrible person. While I was keen to get some justice for the hell she had put me through these last few weeks, I was also ready for it to be over, opting for a more lenient sentence. I allowed my solicitor to write a strong and official warning of the very serious legal consequences should she pursue her harassment, being either prison time or long community service. Well, to top it all off, unbeknownst to me, she was also given an ASBO, antisocial behavioral order, for her misconduct after strong recommendation from the local police force. It was not as serious as it sounds. She was basically marked as someone to keep an eye on. It would be removed in a few years with good behavior, if there was good behavior, and I now get to enjoy my garden in peace with no fear of a menacing racist lurking nearby to try and rip me from my home. Now she was the one that was at risk of being alienated and kicked out of the village if she didn't decide to move away from embarrassment first. I guess she got a taste of her own medicine this time, and I bet that sucked. In our next story, OP gets revenge on an HOA that tried to bully his daughter. I never thought I would be that person who ends up in a battle with their HOA, but here we are. This whole situation started about 6 months ago, and I'm still not sure if I went too far with my response. For context, I live in what used to be a pretty laid-back suburban neighborhood. My daughter, Emilia, 12, is on her school soccer team and absolutely loves the sport. She practices constantly, and since our backyard is too small and sloped for a goal, she's been using a small portable soccer goal in our front yard for the past 2 years. It was just one of those basic metal frame goals you can get at any sporting goods store, anchored with tent stakes for safety, never had any complaints, and the neighbor's kids would often join her for practice. Well, that all changed when our neighborhood started getting, well, let's just say snobbier. Several of the original families moved out and were replaced by people who seemed more concerned with property values than community. The new HOA board was elected 3 months ago, and suddenly everyone's getting violation notices for the smallest things. The first sign of trouble came in the form of an official-looking letter in my mailbox. Dear homeowner, it has come to our attention that you have installed an unauthorized semi-permanent structure in your front yard. This violates HOA bylaw 7.3.2 regarding exterior fixtures. Please remove the structure within 48 hours to avoid further action. Sincerely, XYZ Estates HOA Board. And by the way, of course, I anonymized the name of this HOA neighborhood to not dox OP. I immediately called the HOA office and got Karen, the new board president, on the phone. It is just a practice goal, I explained. Amelia's been using it for 2 years without any issues. I understand, Karen said in that condescending tone that meant she did not understand at all, but we have standards to maintain. Property values are everyone's concern. It's not even permanent, we take it down after practice. The tent stakes makes it a semi-permanent structure, rules are rules. I tried reasoning with her and said, look, my daughter is serious about soccer. This is how she practices. Would you rather have her playing in the street? Your daughter's hobbies are not the HOA's concern, Karen replied. Perhaps you should look into proper sports facilities. I was fuming but decided to comply, sort of. We started taking the goal down completely after each practice session. It was a pain, but Emilia was willing to do the extra work to keep practicing. For about a week, things seemed okay, but then came the second letter, this time with a $100 fine attached. Apparently, someone had complained that even having the goal up temporarily during practice hours was affecting the neighborhood's aesthetic appeal. I contested the fine at the next HOA meeting, but that is when things got interesting. During the meeting, I noticed Patricia from across the street, who had recently become Karen's best friend, smirking every time the soccer goal was mentioned. It did not take a genius to figure out who had been complaining. The final straw came when they sent a compliance officer to our house while Emilia was practicing. He actually tried to issue us another fine while she was in the middle of her drills. Sir, you need to remove this immediately, he said, clipboard in hand. Emilia was nearly in tears. Dad, what's happening? It's okay, sweetie, I assured her, and then turned to the officer. She is literally using it right now. How is this different from kids having a basketball hoop? Basketball hoops are specifically permitted under the bylaw 734. He recited. Soccer goals are not listed as approved recreational equipment. That's when I had my epiphany. I spent that evening going through every single HOA bylaw with a fine-tooth comb. And well, there it was, my loophole. While temporary recreational structures were restricted, permanent architectural features were allowed with proper permits and board approval. There was absolutely nothing in the bylaws preventing a permanent soccer goal as long as it was properly permitted and installed. I spent the next week doing my homework. I contacted a professional sports equipment company that specializes in regulation soccer goals. I hired an architect to draw up proper plans. I even consulted with a lawyer who specialized in HOA law to make sure that everything was bulletproof. The look on Karen's face when I showed up at the next HOA meeting with my full proposal was just priceless. I'm here to submit my application for a permanent architectural installation, I announced, sliding over my perfectly prepared documentation. As per bylaws 411 through 417, I've included all required documentation including professional architectural plans, safety certifications, and installation specifications. Karen sputtered, "But this is for a full-size soccer goal." Yes, I smiled. A regulation FIFA standard goal. Professionally installed with concrete footings. As you can see, I've included the structural engineer's report confirming it meets all safety requirements. "This is absurd," Patricia burst out. "You cannot put a professional soccer goal in a front yard." "Actually," I replied, sliding over another document, "there's nothing in the bylaws preventing it. I've had my lawyer review everything, and as long as it meets all structural and safety requirements, which it does by the way, you cannot legally deny my application." The board had to table the discussion while they consulted their own lawyer. A week later, I received approval, and their lawyer had confirmed that they had no grounds to deny it. The installation day was something to behold. The construction crew arrived early, marked out the location and started drilling the holes for the concrete footings. I'd never seen so many neighbors casually walking their dogs past our house. Patricia stood in her driveway for nearly 2 hours furiously taking pictures. The goal itself was beautiful, professional-grade aluminum with a white powder coat finish, regulation-sized, 24 feet wide by 8 feet high, and the installers even added a heavy-duty net with proper tension systems. Total cost just over $3,000, but worth every penny for what was about to happen. As soon as it was up, Emilia was out there practicing, and you know what? Other neighborhood kids started showing up too, and within a week we had regular informal practice sessions happening. Parents were actually thanking me for giving their kids a safe place to play. The HOA board was livid though, but there was nothing they could do. They tried claiming it was a safety hazard, but my documentation proved it was actually safer than the portable goal had been. They attempted to pass a new bylaw specifically banning soccer goals, but my lawyer pointed out that they could not force removal of an installation that was approved under previous bylaws. And the best part? Well, every time Karen or Patricia had to drive past my house, they have to look at this massive regulation-sized soccer goal. It's become something of a neighborhood landmark. People actually use it as a reference point when giving directions. Emilia's soccer skills have improved tremendously, by the way, with all the practice, and she made team captain this year. The neighborhood kids have formed their own informal soccer league, and our front yard has become the go-to spot for practice. Even some of the newer neighbors who initially supported the HOA's property value concerns have admitted that the regular sound of kids playing and having fun actually makes the neighborhood more appealing to families. Last week I overheard Patricia complaining to Karen at the mailbox about how her house has been on the market for 3 months with no serious offers. Apparently, potential buyers with kids keep asking about the soccer goal, not to complain, but to ask if their children would be welcome to join the informal practice sessions. But here is where I might be the a-hole. So I know this was an aggressive response to what started as a relatively minor issue. I could have just found another solution, like trying to level part of the backyard or having Emilia practice at the park. Instead, I spent $3,000 and countless hours specifically to spite the HOA and their attempts to control every aspect of our neighborhood. Some neighbors have said I went too far and changed the character of the neighborhood. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for my malicious compliance with the HOA rules? And yeah, ripe stars, let me know what you think about this in the comments. Do you think OP was the a-hole here? But I would say he was definitely not the a-hole, and if anything, he changed the character of the neighborhood for the better. Honestly, who can complain about kids playing football? Or soccer, depending on where you're from. Comment number 1, not the a-hole, you followed every rule to the letter while giving them exactly what they deserved, plus you've actually improved the neighborhood by giving kids a safe place to play. Comment number 2, not the a-hole. HOAs are notorious for their power trips, and you found a perfectly legal way to stand up to their nonsense. The fact that it's benefiting other families and kids is just the icing on the cake. Comment number 3, not the a-hole, your daughter's happiness and ability to pursue her passion should come before their artificial property values. The fact that other kids are benefiting too just proves that you did the right thing. Before we end the video, I will read one last petty revenge story that you don't want to miss. It is titled, "Their own kids accidentally helped me get petty revenge against my sister-in-laws." So I was a semi-professional baker when I met my hubby. Not because I tried to be, but because every weekend friends or family would pay me to make cakes, pies, cookies, etc. My specialties are cheesecakes and cakes with surprises in them. After moving to his hometown right before our first Christmas here, I had already gotten all the ingredients for a Christmas cake that was all of our favorite and was telling his sisters how excited I was to make this cake and how the farmer I found had some of the best fruits I'd ever seen. They told me not to bother though, and they would just get store-bought stuff. They do this with a lot of things. Only with me though, if one of their friends offers to bring the same thing, they've already turned me down for it because it would be rude to refuse. Y'all, the bought cake was rock hard and awful. The kids literally made fun of it and asked if we could saw it into bricks to make a bread brick house. Well, fast forward a few years and my husband bragged about my baking to so many people that my semi-pro kitchen was rolling along quite nicely. We were watching my sister-in-law's kids and they bake with me sometimes. We still always get the same store-bought Christmas cake for the family get-together, but no one eats it. So anyway, yesterday the family was together for a situation regarding my parents-in-law. So we decided to hash out the Christmas plans. We are hosting, so I said I would take care of all the food and they can bring dessert. The oldest kid kicked up immediately, complaining why we have to get that awful cake every year and why couldn't I make something for dessert too. My husband responded immediately, telling the kiddo that her mom and auntie prefer the cake from the store. The kiddo looked at her mom, and then her aunt, and then her mom again, back to my husband and said, "Well, they cannot even cook. They shouldn't get to pick what we have to eat." But I shut her down and said that they really liked that cake and that we needed to respect the traditions that make them feel more at home. My true petty revenge, though, is planting the seed of anti-exclusionary traditionalism in their offspring, but I'm making that kid whatever cake she wants next time we watch her for that wicked burn. Please don't forget to write a comment and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy my content, and I will see you again tomorrow.